Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coaches around the world, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy, the Road Dog, with none other than the man, the myth, the makeup legend himself, the guy that's got a face made for radio, Karl Bryan. Welcome to the show, Big Shoots.
What's going on, buddy? Yeah, I was a little bit late for the pre-show, and maybe I was putting on makeup. Shoots. Maybe you're high. Maybe you're insulting me on like the highest level right now.
Perhaps. Maybe you were just trying to find the right makeup to match your heels. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Actually, I might regret saying this, but anyway, so I did them, and I'm going to go with it anyways. So I did a video. We reimagined our entire onboarding just recently, and I had to create a video that welcomed all the new clients. My wife, so she's like, comes down and she goes, "Oh, I need to do something. I need to do something." And she puts makeup on me, right? But what she didn't put makeup on my face. She put makeup on my nose. She's like, "Your nose," because I've had my nose broken 5 times, right? And I've got very little skin on the front of it. And if you ever seen a picture of me, you will know that it's a little bit sideways on my face. But anyway, she comes and she put makeup, and I'm like, "Oh, this is like the big time. Okay, cool. Like, hit me." And and I'm like, "You're just gonna do my nose, right?" Like, it was a little bit insulting. But anyways, there you go.
I'm surprised she didn't give you the glass with a plastic nose on it with a mustache.
Yeah.
Well, right?
Like,
just as expected. All right, Shoots. I want to dive right in. I know that you had a bit of a weekend talking to some high-end marketers. I'm not sure if you're going to name drop because, you know, you are a big shooter yourself, but just right out of the gates, just wondering how that went. Like any sort of, takeaways from that?
What would I say? Yeah, I tell you,
that's why I'm asking.
It's not the size of your brain; it's the size of your thinking. That was a note that I put, big highlighter at the top. I was explaining like winners concentrate on winning and losers concentrate on winners. Like, I'd thrown it back to him, and I heard a lot like just a lot of concentration around what the competition is doing. And that's understandable and that's fine. And maybe there's a place for that. But like, again, winners focus on winners and then losers focus on winners. Is that what I'm trying to say? Right. Winners concentrate on winning and losers concentrate on winners. Right. It's a competitive world, but you want to control that. So like if a billionaire shows up and he were to give advice, what would that look like? And it's really, really simple, product. I think we touched on this. It was either last week or the week before, but it's just like 3 words, and they are product, product, and product. And then just the relationship. What's the relationship your clients have with the product? And it needs to be absolutely stellar, 5 star. Speaking of 5 star, like you can go to a restaurant, right? And there's a 4-star restaurant and a 5-star restaurant, or maybe a 4-star hotel and then a 5-star hotel. Like math, Road Dog, obviously, 4 to 5, that's a 20% improvement. Like math says that it's 20%, but with that statement, product, 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 and the relationship between your client and your product, your service, your thing, right? It's not 20%. It's like Grand Canyon. It's just monumentally different business practices are what's required to take you from 4-star to 5-star. You know what I mean? It's not like a level up. It's, again, we talked about recently how like our onboarding, right? Like the instructions that I gave the team, I didn't want anything improved. Zero interest in anything being improved, although it was obvious that was going to happen in different areas. But I said, I want it reimagined. Right. So it's Elon Musk 101, first principles. You don't want to go to the reason Bill Belichick crushes everybody in football is because he uses the rule book to create his plays, and the competition uses his plays to create their plays, right? Like they go to Bill Belichick's plays, then try and improve them, and then they wonder at halftime why he makes these unbelievable improvements that kind of put things big time in their favor, even with the rookie quarterback. Anyway, so it's reimagined. It's going from 4 to 5 is not 20%. It's literally it's a rejigging of the entire thing. And let's go to first principles. That's how did Elon Musk, send a rocket ship into space? And he's not a rocket scientist, and he's never been to school for it. He just first principles. That's how we did it. Again, we've talked about that in the past, but I think that there's unbelievable power in that. And that again is what I found. It's what I was talking about. What else would I say? One thing, there's not a single person there that did not say their product, with what I just said, not a single person is going to say that their product is not amazing, right? But then I asked, like they all knew, CPM and CPC, they know their click-through rate. They could give me all these marketing numbers that frankly would, impress anybody and make your eyes possibly roll back if you didn't know a lot of that stuff. But then you ask, like, okay, so everybody loves your product, right? And then it's like, okay, well, so what's your net promoter score? What's your churn rate? What's your CHS? What's your customer retention cost, right? CRC. They didn't have a single, for the most part, that would be an exaggeration, but for the most part, they knew all of, specific metrics, but they didn't have metrics around product. And that, in my opinion, was, that was a takeaway. I was like, guys, and you're saying how much everybody loves your product, but you're not measuring this. You don't have, You're not concentrating here clearly. So that was saying it is one thing, but having it is another. So Road Dog, that's it. But again, just highlighter, top of my notes, and I brought myself back to, and I, thought about, frankly, first thing this morning as I was kind of like digesting a bit. And it's like, it's not the size of your brain, it's the size of your thinking, and the goal, what you're trying to accomplish, and your vision, and then your reasons behind that vision. So anyways, that's what I would say about product.
Interesting. It's interesting when it doesn't surprise me that they don't know a lot of, it's okay. Let me make sense here for a second. It always amazes me at how well people present the front of stage stuff. But when you go backstage, how unorganized and of a gong show it is. Like, give you an example, right? So, agency I do a little bit of contract work with right now, big agency, they do, I don't even know, 8 figures a year in revenues. They just launched a program through a digital marketer, and they look like they've got it all dialed in. But when you go behind the scenes and you're like, oh my gosh, right? Like, they're a bit of a gong show in parts as well. So, it's always fascinating to me how people can make it all look slick, but when you actually break it down, and like you're saying, you take a look at some of these metrics, they don't even know what they are. I'm going to ask you about one of those in a second, but when you talk about the difference between 4 and 5-star hotel, is that sort of similar to the difference between a Motel 6 and a Super 8? Would that be?
That's exactly. How did you know, Shoots? That's exactly the example. I didn't I say that? That's what I meant to say. There we go.
That's kind of, I'm just bringing you back down. That's really what it is. You know what? I will say this though, the Motel 6, one of the best campaigns ever, with the "we'll leave the light on for you." Like, how basic and simple and yet welcoming is that message? We'll leave the light on for you. So beautiful.
Well done.
Anyway, so there you go.
Maybe just listen. If I can jump in, Road Dog, like the front. Everybody wants I think what you're just describing, so that everybody's got it. We've all been to a restaurant, or if you've watched Kitchen Nightmares, you saw this all the time, where you've got, in a restaurant, you have front of house, back of house, right? And again, the front of house can present really well, and quite frankly, normally does. But it's the back of house where you go back there and you realize that, the the stove hasn't been cleaned and the air ducts haven't been cleaned. And when you actually lifted anything up, you're just horrified. And then you went into the storage room, don't walk 2 feet into the storage room, but go to the back of the back of the back of the storage room, and you could be in for a nasty surprise. That's an example, right? Like where again, and it ends up reflecting, right? And the cook, how seriously is the cook taking his job if he's not taking the time to make his area, not only hygienic, but like spick and span. So front of house, back of house, I think that's important for everybody to understand that the chiropractor's got the same thing. The dentist has got the same thing. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker got the same thing.
Of course, the candlestick maker. They're the worst. Hey, listen, the one thing I will say about that too is the one thing that I'm getting out of that is no matter how polished a business may look up front, you don't know how much of a gong show they are in the back end. So don't pass up on wanting to talk to a business because they seem to have it, all together and they look all polished on the outside, right? So 100%. Don't ever do that. But hey, listen, you mentioned one of the metrics, CHS. Is that like a coastal health system, or what's happening there? What's going on there? What's that all about?
That customer health score. Nice.
That's probably close.
Yeah, you're close. Shit, well done.
Right, John?
Yeah. What I like customer health score, maybe a measure of customer success, right? Really simple. There would be so we need to break it down. A little more probably. I'm not the expert in this area, by the way, but if you break it down, you've really got frequency, like how much time are your users spending on your product, software, your thing. If it's a restaurant, how often are your customers coming back, and what's the frequency? Are they coming back every 7 days, every 14 days, every 21, 28, etc.? And then you've got breadth. How many users in a specific account are using the product? So I used to own a hockey rink, and we would do, a sports stadium, but we would do like birthday parties, and like how many people were coming. I don't know if that's the best example, but how many people were coming to the birthday party? And then you've got depth. How many of your products or services and maybe their key features are actually being used, right? So again, so I think, look, frequency. It's the amount of time you spend on Facebook, the amount of time you spend on Instagram, the amount of time that you spend on YouTube, right? That would be the frequency. Breadth, how many users in a specific account. Thinking, okay, so our like a Facebook page, a Facebook group would be an example, right? So again, people are there, but that's an example of where, Zucky's got, influencers bringing large, niched group of people together. So that would be an example of that. Maybe it's if you own a sports stadium, like how many kids maybe it's a sports league. How many kids in a specific age group? Or maybe if you got a private school, my daughter just her school had a little graduation dealio, and it was like it's a private school, and it's like how many kids in each of the classes would be an example of that, right? And then depth. Like for us, we have profit acceleration software, digital acceleration software, group coaching software, profit acceleration simulator. So digital acceleration software behind the scenes with some digital marketers. We just did a little bit of a push and made sure that we got some digital marketers using it. The reason we got there is basically, CHS. So customer health score, like how often they're using it. You know what, Road Dog, and whilst on that, I'll just tell you that TTV is a worthy metric. And again, you could go pretty deep on this, but just think, how quickly do customers get value from your services and products, right? TTV, time to value. And the time is typically like from an initial action. So think of an opt-in on a landing page, or think of in a retail environment walking into the store. So how long does it take for the customer until the moment they get value from the product, right? So let's say like with us, one of the reimagining, some of the foundation behind it, like let's say a customer buys your software online, can they immediately log in and use it? Right. And then if they can't immediately log in, then this is a problem. But once they log in, can they actually use it? So what's the how, frequently asked questions in the how-to guide, and is there a dummy, you know what I mean? Like you'd set up dummy accounts and that kind of thing. A time to value, um, hugely important. I'm trying to think of like a dummy down, like think personal trainer, right? So Road Dog's a personal trainer. Dave down the street's a personal trainer. If I went and worked with that personal trainer, how long would it take me to feel success? And let's assume that's losing a pound or two, right? Like, and very importantly for you guys, like for a business coach, how long until the client gets a tangible value from your relationship? Right. That's again, we built the software where it's guaranteed to find any business owner $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. If you really think about that entire premise, that entire value proposition is based on TTV, like, value. Like we want our coaches to be able to pay for their services for an entire 12 months before they even get started. But of course, that's one thing. And then it's like literally money in the bank account as you start to work with them. That's where it comes from. So that's what I would, what did you ask there? CHS, customer health score. And then just, there's lots of different metrics. The bottom line is if all this is new to you, it's probably going to be entirely new to your clients. This is something you might want to, if you do agree with me that it's product. If a billionaire would be advising you and they would say, well, if you really want to crack it and you want to build a company that hits anything close to what my company did, I'm just going to tell you one thing. It's what's the relationship between your product and the clients that use it? And that's going to tell you how far you're going to go, right? So measuring these types of things like time to value, like for your client, help them with that. And frequency, breadth, depth. That's how you get there. So
Road Dog, at the end of the day, right? It's what gets measured gets managed, right?
There. Yep.
Right.
There you go.
So I guess find out what's the 20% of the 100, right? And what's the 80% you don't need to measure? Like that'd be the kind of the curious one, right? What's the 20% you need to sort of manage? But it's amazing how few people are actually looking at metrics, and they don't even know what metrics to look at. And now let's actually pivot that for a second, because one of the biggest things that we should be managing is ourselves, right? So, and obviously, because we actually had a question like, well, what if your client is just poor at managing themselves? Do you have a formula way to, easily help direct them? I'd be curious, because I've seen some of your work ethic in the gym and it's piss poor. I'm not going to lie. Rule number 1, don't get injured. It sounds to me like you just don't want to push too hard shoots, but in business, you're a savage. So it's interesting how you turn that on and off. But when you're talking managing self, see what I did there, right? You didn't see that one. What tips or formulas would you say you could give somebody either manage themselves or help their clients help themselves?
Yeah, nice. By the way, nice pivot, Shoots. There you go. Making Road Dogs
it's not podcast. It's not amateur hour. Okay, like that ended after year 1.5 of the podcast. We're seasoned veterans now.
That's it. Okay, so look, good question. Managing self. You gotta look. I'm not. Tony. If you're a coach of any. With any credibility, that managing yourself, managing your emotions, doing the same, for and with your clients is killer. But, like it's kind of like a new undertaking in the modern world where like the starting point would be like work out your true strengths and weaknesses and not perceived, right? Like a few hundred years ago, you didn't need to manage yourself, right? You didn't have many choices. You were born a peasant and you'd stay a peasant. You were born a merchant and you'd stay a merchant, right? Everything was kind of handed to you and you had little choice in the matter. we grew up assuming that, like, people have like a MBA, or somebody's got a PhD, and like they're the smartest of all, or that, somebody's a highly religious figure, and then you assume that, well, they must be more honest than the average. So, is the PhD smarter and more effective, more efficient? And then is the highly religious person more honest? And the answer is maybe, right? Sometimes, but I don't know. You know what I mean? You possibly could find yourself brutally disappointed. And if you speak to somebody who's been around the block a little bit, that's normally where that conversation would go, right? Like, Road Dog, here's an interesting point, right? Like, scientific research will tell you, in fact, I think we talked about this a bit on the pre-show. Was it the pre? Yeah, I think it was, I don't know, pre-show or when we got started here. But the Stanley Cup was handed out, and the one team lost clearly, one team won. High five to the Avalanche, right? Nice one. But like it what do I want to say? It hurts twice as much to lose as winning makes you feel good. Am I doing a good job? Is that making any bloody sense? If you went to Vegas and you put $50 down and you turned it into $8,000, and you're 15 minutes into your night at New York, right? Then you lose. So you went 50, and what did I say? You turn it into $8,000, and then you lose half of it towards the end of the night. You will go home feeling depressed, right? What happened? Your brain fools you and forgets that you actually made $4,000 of profit, and you're just thinking about the $8,000, right? This is where your mind plays tricks on you when you're trying to what would you like managing oneself. Like I talk about science, I tell you, you don't know what your true strengths are. You think you know, but I got to tell you, you're usually wrong. And you're also bad at identifying your own weaknesses. And again, this isn't my opinion. Like this is what science is telling us, right? And I'll tell you another thing, Road Dog. We talk about feedback and data and measurements. Most people, and I'm going to say like 95%, and that's just a throwaway number, but it's like really, really high. They're not using real feedback and results to learn, what am I going to call it? The truth, quote unquote, about themselves, right? Like what are they doing? They're going with their gut. And what does gut stand for? Gave up thinking, right? Like, here's a way to do it. Self-assess the past. Like, what have you always succeeded at? And what have you almost always fell away from, or we'll call it failed at, right? And brutal honesty is totally required here. And then what you got to do is direct all of your focus and energy into the things that you've always succeeded at. Like that right there, you talk about 80-20. It's way more exciting than that, but it's 80-20. It's closer to a 150, right? Where you're dialing in on what you're good at. But the problem is, if you're not assessing, there's a really good chance that you're guessing wrong, right? So, and people don't try to change everything about yourself, right? Like, it's so bloody hard and horrifically ineffective. You got to stop the bad habits. And then, like I said a minute ago, really work to those, not just the strengths, but what I'm talking about is your natural strengths that there's a decent chance you're a little bit off on. Don't try to turn your weaknesses into strengths. That's what I'm saying there. And now, to complicate that a little bit, you might think that you're weak at something, but because you're going to do a ruthless, brutally honest self-assessment, you might actually find that it's just a bad habit, right? Like, you're not actually weak in a particular area, although you thought. It's just this bad habit that's lingering, right? So brutal honesty and measurement is going to get you the answer there. But that, again, you don't know what your strengths are. And you're bad at kind of identifying your own weaknesses. If you thought about that as a frame, a little bit of assessment, and with an open, you know what I mean? Like, with an open canvas, you might be surprised at where you get to. Like, okay, let's just acknowledging true strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, most people, they're wrong, but it's far more common for people to know what they're not good at. And then even more, more people are wrong than right. Like, what I'm trying to get at is that you're probably guessing, You're not using real feedback from your own life. And by the way, your clients are also doing this, which is what I'm trying in my head. I got these hamsters running where I'm trying to kind of bring it back to like that's the relationship that your clients got. Like they actually think that they're good at something and they're not. And then they think that they're bad at something and it's actually just a bloody bad habit that they haven't conquered. Right. So, if you can only perform from strength, you can't build high performance on weakness. Right. You can't, you've ever seen American Idol? If you can't bloody sing, you can't bloody sing. You can wear a pink suit and dress up like a clown and be like super good looking or super weird or whatever, but you're not going to quite get there. Right. And like past failures weren't from lack of discipline or lack of willpower. It's just the fact that you weren't good at it. Right. Your clients weren't good at it. And again, like, your brain. So then why does that happen, I guess? And you've heard us, everybody, Tony Robbins has certainly talked about this tons. We've talked about it on the podcast, but your brain is designed for survival, right? But it's also designed to kind of trick you a little bit. Like you've got these inbuilt cognitive biases, which again, if you listen to the podcast, we talked about it to death. A lot of writing about cognitive biases and the more popular ones and the ones that are, really relevant in a coaching relationship. Like what we're really trying to do, we have 50 of them. We're trying to rank what the top 10 are for some mental acceleration that we're doing. And we find that like get these inbuilt cognitive biases that make you overestimate your positive qualities and then underestimate your negative ones, right? So on average, like people think on average their IQ is quite a bit higher than it actually is, right? And this is 80-20, not my opinion. This is science, right? And by the way, women tend to underestimate their IQ and then men tend to overestimate it, which again, I find interesting, right? But like you'll do a survey and you'll find that 90% of the people think that they're over average. Again, like people are tricking them. There's no brutal honesty or no assessment, no data. So they're all just assuming they're over average, right? Like I think there was a study done on, what was it, the people that were like as drivers, how many people thought they were above average driver? And it was like 90+% thought that they were above average drivers. Like that's impossible because obviously even 50%, you're either below it or above it. And like 90+% thought that they were in the higher bracket, right? Or maybe football season. We talk about hockey every year. I'm adamant that the Leafs are going to win the Stanley Cup. Never bloody do. Can't get out of the first round. But it's, football season's going to be coming. And it's like, if you're a passionate fan, you look at your team and no matter what the experts say, you think they got a real shot. Or certainly, the vast majority of the team supporters feel that, right? Unless they're in the middle, the beginning of a really hardcore rebuild, they really think that they got a chance. Like this is going to be their year, right? And people think that, like generally, if you look at this, isn't my opinion. This is like stats. This is science. People think that they're smarter than they actually are. People also think that they're better looking than they actually are, right? And the science will tell you, much like 90+% people thinking they're above average driver, that it's just a bit of delusion. Or like, what was that road dog, that flight? I think the Malaysian flight 370 comes to mind, right? Like it went straight into the ocean, right? Like horrific scenario, right? It was like 5 years ago, but people with family on board and on that flight, they are positive that their loved ones are still alive, right? Or a mom of a brutal criminal, right? The worst of the worst, absolutely believes that her son, her daughter is innocent despite insane amounts of proof, right? So if that's the reality, what's the underlying issue? Well, what leads people to use their gut, gave up thinking and be ridiculously off and, not be in tune with their strengths and completely misdiagnose their weaknesses and go to American Idol and actually cry when, Simon Cowell says, oh my gosh, you're absolutely brutal. You're not going to the next, you see them, right? Like they're balling. They actually thought they were really, really good. So what is it? It's fear, like 100%. Like it's fear of not, addressing reality. And then if fear is the problem, what's the solution? It's one word, real simple. And I talked about this on a weekend. They said courage. Courage is the solution. It can solve almost everything for you, for your clients, for Road Dog, for me, for our kids, for your best friend, for the guy that's smoking. If you can, and here's what I would recommend, right? Like if you see your clients, you see yourself maybe in what I'm describing. Every time you go to start something, right? Because again, I'm defining problems here. Like, what is the solution? Let's say that you want to go on a diet. You're going to do a project. You're going to hire a new staff member. You're going to form a new mastermind. You're going to start a business. You're going to create a business. You're going to start a second business, which is normally a horrible idea, by the way. But anyways, you're going to do a Facebook ad campaign. Write down in detail what you expect the result to be in 6 months, right? And by the way, maybe 90 days to make it a little bit, tighter. If 6 months is too much for you to swallow, but like 6 months, and then revisit what you expected to happen in 6 months, and then use that feedback to determine your strengths and weaknesses. And good chance that what I just described is something that you've never done, your clients have never done, and it's just it's not the done thing, right? And that is why people struggle to self-assess, to their strengths and weaknesses, they got it all mixed up, right? And remember, your brain, like, it wants to trick you, right? So again, you don't measure, don't acknowledge. And then what we do instead is we change directions, right? We decide that instead of going to Facebook, we're going to go to YouTube. And instead of going to YouTube, we're going to go to TikTok. And instead of starting a business in this niche, instead of being a business coach, I'm going to go and be a management consultant. I'm going to go into leadership, right? So that's how they get there because of these creative excuses, right? For why it didn't work out. Like, why wasn't I successful as a business coach? Why was my Facebook ad campaign not successful? Why did the client let me go in 90 days instead of doing a harsh, real assessment of it? Like, again, when you take on a client, I want you to, write out, like I said a minute ago, exactly what you think is going to happen. Let's say the 3-month mark, the 6-month mark, right? In detail. And then revisit those notes, and you might find that, hang on, I got to do some self-assessment here, that I thought I was really motivational. And I thought I was like, Tony Robbins had nothing on me. And all of a sudden, they didn't do anything. Well, there's no such thing as a bad student. There's only a bad teacher, right? So again, you come up with these ideas in your mind, like, it's just timing for them. And you believe it. And it's just, no, it's not. It's that you didn't motivate them. It's a lack of money, right? It's lack of talent. It's lack of age. I'm too old, or I'm too young. I don't have a degree. You come back to resources, right? And the ultimate resource is to be resourceful, right? But a real and harsh self-assessment would quickly determine that, lack of leadership, lack of passion, maybe, possibly passion for the wrong thing. You might be passionate about your own bank account, but not passionate about your client's bank account. Well, that might not, you know what I mean? That might not be the best thing. Or maybe you just, legitimately lacking the management skills, the leadership skills to follow through. And then the question is, do you got it? Is that a bad habit, or do you just suck at it? And you need to, very much think about it. Am I in the right place? Right? So, I don't know, Road Dog. This is rabbit hole city, but anyways.
You're in a massive rabbit hole. The one thing that I will say is, you talk about mindset. Yeah. And the one thing that came to my mind, because you talked about like it hurts twice as much to lose.
Yeah.
It's interesting because here we go. We've got some deep philosophical lines coming up from one of our favorite shows, Shorzy.
Nice.
He's talking about how the younger generation, here's what he says. It's not that they don't love to win. It's that they don't hate to lose.
Yes. Boom. True. And that is like, you're saying that's you believe that to be real. Is that right? Like,
yeah. 100%. Because it's easier because you talk about bouncing from, like, let's just say one campaign to another as an example, right? Oh, that didn't work out. Okay, well, I'm going to move to the next one because I'm going to win there. Okay, well, you just got beat. So you don't hate to lose because you're always just thinking you're going to win at the next thing rather than having that harsh self-assessment, right? Of wow, like, okay, it's, I think that's part of kind of a bigger problem. But anyways, I don't want to go down a huge rabbit hole because I totally could. And you've lured me into yours, so this is not cool. But can you give me sort of just a practical business example to play this out and get this back on track?
I don't know. That's Road Dog's way of saying, shoot, I got to step in here and help. Practical example. Look, go three levels deep. It's probably what you got to do. Like, let's say it's somebody we hear all the time. You're going to you're a business coach and you need to hire a lead generator, right? But it doesn't end up happening. And if I ask you why, you go one layer deep, and the answer would be something like, oh, no good people available. The good ones want too much money. It's too expensive, right? And then if I went deeper, why? Go one level deeper, right? Maybe the answer is that, people work for things they believe in. Like they want to work for not a person. They want to work for a bit of a cause and a vision. And a visionary is the kind of person that they get attracted to, right? So when you interviewed them, they asked you how much are you going to pay, and then you told them, and then guess what happened? The discussion kind of ended there, right? I've said many a times, like when I'm hiring a new staff member, the last thing that we talk about is the money, and it's a 1 hour conversation. I'm talking about the vision, where we're going. You know what I mean? Like I'm really selling the vision of the company, and then we get to the X's and O's. And I got to tell you that very consistently, that's why folks stick around. And you, Road Dog, like my staff, Big Al just had his 10-year anniversary. Chris has been with us for, I think it's 8 or 9 years. Craig's been with me personally, my right-hand man for 13, 14, I'm going to say 13 years, might be 14, might be 12. I think it's 13 years. Adrian and I were on 12 or 13, right? As my business partner, total legend, my bookkeeper. She's been with me for over a decade. My number one sales guy, Scott Walker, shout out to him, legend, played for the Pittsburgh. He's a Pittsburgh Pirate, very cool guy. And, he's been around for a decade. So blah, 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 blah. That's, what I mean? But they're not staying for, what they're staying for is that they really believe that we're doing something special here. We have an internal call. That onboarding stuff, a big part of it is like, it's not just what we're doing, it's why we're doing it. Right. So, anyway, you go, why? If you just got on the phone and started talking about numbers, don't be surprised when they don't end up working for you. Right. And then let's go, why one deeper, which you kind of just did, but it's like, you don't have a vision for your company, and the positive influence that you're going to have on local businesses in the community. And that's why you can't attract a team. And that's why people aren't willing to refer you, your services, et cetera. And then it's the same with the JV, right? Oh, I can't convince the accountant. They all seem interested, but nobody follows through. Go three levels deep, and you might find the same thing happens, right? Like you're going to find that there's a fundamental business flaw as your weakness. Shout out to what I said a minute ago. Like you don't realize that you think you've got a vision, but I ask you what your vision is and you don't have one. And then when you speak to somebody who's going to work for you, you're not telling them that. I got bad news, right? If I go to your website, I can't read it. If I go to your LinkedIn profile, I can't read about it, etc. Right? But again, it's kind of undiagnosed, and you are bad at recognizing your own weaknesses, and you're no good at recognizing your strengths, by the way. And again, sometimes you're ridiculously off. And the weakness is actually a bad habit, right? So, and Road Dog, I said a minute ago, courage, right? Courage can solve everything, but it's hard to go there. Like so many people, they just stay on the surface, and it's like Road Dog, you and I, like we love getting together and having a beer. And it's like our conversations are if anybody listening in, they're anything but surface level. You know what I mean? Like we go deep fast, and you like it, I like it. And that's why we love to have a beer together. Right. And certain people are like that, but That takes a little bit of courage. It takes a little bit of vulnerability, not to make out like everything is all wonderful. So anyway, so courage, fear, if fear's driving you, you're not able to grab that. And maybe also, Road Dog, for some, truthfully, right, here's the problem. You're listening to this. There's a chance that this is a problem for you. If you're 80% of the population with oxygen and blood through your body, you jump from thing to bloody thing, right? Like, there's your problem, right? That's why the guy isn't working for you. That's why you don't have anybody on board, because that's why you don't have division, because you're jumping from bloody one thing to the other, right? Like, if you're a bad payer, you attract bad payers. If you're highly motivational and kick, just a crushing individual, you're going to, what I mean? That means that you've done a lot of personal development work. You're going to attract those type of people, right? But misdiagnose the problem and then they blame somebody else, or don't get to the real problem. Like a great salesperson, right, Road Dog? Like it's not just about talking smoothly, right? It's about listening. A really good salesperson listens and actually gives a crap and takes meaningful notes, follows up. Why do they follow up? Because they care. Like, they really care. They really believe if you're not sold, you can't sell it, right? So, like, what would I say? Like, focus on how, focus on the strengths you lack in an important area, okay? And let's assume that's lead generation. Well, find a partner. If you suck at generating leads, find a way to influence the accountant, the business broker, the promotional company, right? Build on your strengths to get to world class. Like, that's what you got to do. Don't try to take your weakness and become good at it. Go to your strengths. If you show me somebody who's passionate about something, I'm going to show you somebody who's good at something. Like, you're passionate because you're good at it, right? The things that you suck at, you are not passionate about. Once you get past a certain point, right? Once you hit that kind of plateau, right? So again, the JV, like, become world class and watch how fast the accountant is attracted to you as opposed to you being attracted to them. Road Dog, we always talk about it when you do a live event. You know what you got to do? You got to be amazing, like amazing. And how do you become amazing? By not being amazing for a period of time. You got to get out there and talk, and you got to self-assess, and need to revisit what it did and did not work, and how many referrals did you get and not get, how many clients did you get and not get, and kind of build on that. I'd also say, like, stop using like ignorance as an excuse, right? Like, I'm not a people person. I've been overweight my entire life, so that's why I'm going to stay overweight. I just can't cold call is what we hear all the time. It's like, it's not about whether or not you can cold call. If you're not willing to cold call, that says you're not all in. You got to go all in. That's the secret. The secret is there is no secret, but you got to go all in. You don't need to cold call, but the fact that you won't cold call means that you're probably not going to get there, right? And like, addressing bad habits. Again, people confuse these weaknesses for bad habits. It's ridiculously common. Like, you might think that you lack energy, as an example, right? Well, if we took 2 minutes to reverse engineer something, you might see that on, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night, you're having a couple pops pretty late. And then, so what's happening is you're falling asleep, but with alcohol in your body, you're not going to sleep at the level you are without. And then if we look at your daily regime, you're not working out. And if you're not working out, guess what? You're not going to have as much sleep. So if you kick those bad habits, you might find that you actually have more energy than 50, than your competition times a lot. But it was the bad habit that was holding you back, right? And importantly, avoid tasks that are weaknesses. If you're disorganized but amazing at sales, you got to hire somebody. Like, you have to have an assistant. If you don't have an executive assistant, you are one, by the way. But if you're not organized, accept that you're not organized and don't pretend like you are, but just hire somebody that's unbelievable. And don't just hire the first damn person, and don't hire the person just because they're willing to accept the insanely low amount of money that you're willing to pay them, right? Like go to somebody. So, Road Dog, that's what I'd say, bud. What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. What comes up for me is the Dan Sullivan who, not how, right? Like, Yeah, it's just focus on your unique abilities and focus on your strengths, and then just who are you going to get to do those other things, not how are you going to do them. That's huge.
Absolutely.
All right, we're at the top of the hour, so I think we're just going to tease the next question I was going to ask you, and it's all about accounting. So that if that doesn't absolutely dry up anybody wanting to listen to the next episode, I don't know what that'll take. But there was a great question for your book about Accounting 101 for business coaches, but we will take that on next week. So looking back at sort of kind of the rabbit holes that you went down today, what's one thing that you would pull out from today that somebody could actually implement into their business? Because there's a few there, but like if you could only choose one, what's the one thing that somebody could take and be like, okay, this is the one thing I'm going to implement in my business this week?
It was rabbit hole filled, Shoots. I'm not gonna lie. Like almost
something different, something new, right? That never happens.
Dry. I was glad when you jumped in. My mouth was dry, Shoots. Not the size of your brain. It's the size of your thinking. I think that I think that there's some magic in that. But the one thing, kind of what I just talked about a second ago, but that's like the solution, right? Like if you're not what I was trying to say, not sure if I did a fabulous job. Hopefully everybody picked up what I put down, but like you're not really in tune with your strengths and you could be way off on your weaknesses. And by the way, you might be spot on, but the way that you're going to get there is by assessing, right? So let's assume that I define the problem that you are out to lunch on your client is out to lunch on strengths and weaknesses, right? So what we got to do is ask the question and go 3 levels deep, right? Like again, I can't find a lead generator to work for me with me, right? Or I can't find a joint venture partner and then go, that's, you know what I mean? Like your first answer would be, I ask why, then you give me the answer, and that's the first level. And then we go a second level, and then we go a third level. And by the way, there's no reason why you can't go 5 to 7 levels. But I got to tell you, when you get to that third level and because this is a very much a fundamental thing, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to find that there's just a fundamental flaw that you got to sort out. You're trying to interview people to work for you, and you're surprised at the fact that they're not going to work for you, and you're just talking about money the entire time. It's the same. It's like the daycare, right? Like they answer the phone, and what does mom say? How much? It's the first question, right? Like, is this the first? But when you search a car, what's the first thing you look for? How much? When you look for a house, what's the first thing you search for? How much, right? Like, what's the criteria on the website? What's the criteria? Price. It's the first thing you look at, but guess what? It's the last thing that you buy on, right? Because again, otherwise we'd be all running around in $2,000 cars, and that's clearly not the case, right? So it's a little bit the same there, where absolutely we have to assume that they're going to need to be able to make enough to stay out of poverty, right? They got to be able to feed themselves and their family. But that being said, if you have a big enough vision and a high enough, you know what I mean? If you're exercising that, or not exercising, well, hopefully you're exercising it, but you're presenting it in a way that they think, wow, this is really the kind of person that I want to work for. This is the kind of cause that I want to get behind. And this is really something that I feel like I can grow with. And he doesn't even have a salesperson yet, so I'm going to be the first one, and maybe we can make this into something special. And by the way, he's not good at XYZ, and then those are my skills. Like, I really feel like there's a good fit here. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going their road, dog, right? Like they're having a conversation about wages and getting surprised when people are working for them for wages, which probably isn't going to be high enough. What do you think, Shoots? You picking up what I'm putting down? Is that making sense?
The one thing I'll go deeper on with you real quick is you're talking about the size of your thinking. Can I just challenge you that the size of your thinking is directly correlated to the quality of the questions that you're asking yourself?
Shoots. Nice.
Wouldn't you say? Right? Because it's all based on that. Like you got to ask better questions. So if you're asking yourself, how do I put more money in my bank account? Well, that's not a great question. Right? Yeah. Like what do I need to deliver? And who do I need to become?
There you go.
Right? All of that. Yeah. Anyways. I could go down a massive rabbit hole with you right now, Shoots. This could be a 5-hour podcast, but we're going to cut it short there unless there's something else you want to finish on that.
No, we're good. No, that's right. It's thinking is nothing more and nothing less than asking and answering questions to yourself. When you listen to Tony Robbins, he's talking for an hour, you're going to see that 40 minutes of it is him asking you questions. So if thinking is asking and answering questions to yourself, what he's really doing is directing your thoughts, right? And then, so what happens is that's, by the way, Hypnosis NLP 101. And that's what happens. You fall into a little bit of a trance. And that's why Tony Robbins is Tony Robbins. So yeah, that's, the questions you were asking yourself. If you want to know why you're thinking at a low, medium, or high level, Road Dogg just hit it. You're not asking big enough questions, and start asking bigger ones. So there you go, Shoots. That's what we got.
Boom. We end with a compliment to me. Holy smokes. Record this. What day is it? I'm going to have to go ahead and just save this episode. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the man, the myth, and the legend himself, King Karl. If you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or want more information on the profit acceleration software, or just how to become a better business coach, visit focused.com and subscribe today. And also, of course, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share with a fellow coach or someone you think might make a great coach. And of course, as always, we'd appreciate it if you would rate this episode, as we know that it'll move us up the ranks. And that is it for another week. We will see you in the next episode. And remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.